We're barely a month in, and 2024 is already shaping up to be one of the best years for RPG fans in a long time. Old legends like Vampire the Masquerade are making a comeback, and fresh upstarts like Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden are expected to upend the established norms of AAA gaming with their innovative storytelling. What's up everyone, Big Dan here, and in this video, we're going to take a look at the 10 most anticipated RPGs of 2024. So buckle up, grab some iced coffee, and let's dive into the list. Kicking off the show at number 1 is Persona 3 Reload, which was released last week for both PC and console. It's a remake of the original Persona 3 and is targeted at both OG fans as well as players who are entirely new to the Persona series. The graphics have been completely overhauled with brand new 3D models, lighting systems, and highly detailed textures, while simultaneously retaining the anime-inspired art design that drew fans to the original. Persona 3 Reload also retains the same turn-based party combat, but with modernized mechanics and quality of life improvements that have been borrowed from more recent entries such as Persona 5. It hasn't made any changes to the plot, but the social simulation aspect has been improved with multiple new activities. You can engage in cooking, chat with any individual, and take care of plants. The game even lets you rent movies and read books, so you never feel bored during your daily life. Speaking of daily life, in Persona 3, you're just a normal high school kid at day, making friends and figuring out what to eat at the cafeteria. But as soon as the sun goes down, you transform into a monster-slaying badass who summons personas and explores a gigantic mystery dungeon. I recently played Persona 5 Royal for the first time, which made me fall in love with the franchise, so I'm happy to continue my journey into Persona 3 Reload. At number 2, we've got Banishers Ghosts of New Eden, which will be released on the 13th of February. Fortunately, it's not a Friday, and the game has all the luck on its side because it's made by Focus Entertainment. This is the French publisher that gave us A Plague Tale Requiem, which was one of the best sleeper hits of 2022. But while Focused Entertainment is the publisher, most of the actual development work has been done by Dogma, whose resume includes Life is Strange and Vampire. With Banishers Ghosts of New Eden, Dogma has gone in a completely different direction. It features dual protagonists, Red and Antea, and is set in a version of 17th century colonial New England that's been plagued by horrifying supernatural creatures. Antea, the second playable character, is a ghost and your former partner. She has spirit abilities that complement your arsenal of weapons and spells in the mortal realm. Combining your powers, the two of you go on a quest to solve the many mysteries of New Eden, encountering cursed people who are trapped in the boundary between life and death. As a banisher, you're given 3 different choices. You can blame the living and sacrifice them by holding them responsible for their actions. You can also banish the souls of those who have already died, sentencing them to a fate of eternal suffering. The third option is Ascension, through which you liberate trapped souls and give them peace. Every person you choose to save or condemn will affect the final outcome of the plot and your relationship with Antea. I'm really hyped to play this game and experience the unique morality system from the POV of both protagonists. RPGs with truly meaningful choice systems are rare in this day and age, and Banishers looks really promising from all the footage we've seen so far. Coming in at number 3 is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, slated for a February 29th launch on PlayStation 5. It's part 2 of the 2020 Final Fantasy VII Remake, which itself is a reimagining of the original game released on PlayStation 1 back in 1997. Remaking a game that's nearly 3 decades old is no easy task, but I can report that Square Enix managed to pull it off, partially at least. For starters, the Final Fantasy VII Remake from 2020 featured some of the most eye-wateringly gorgeous graphics. Entire locations and action set pieces from the original were remade with great attention to detail, utilizing the power of modern hardware. There's no doubt that this game will still look good half a decade from now. Combat was also changed for the better, striking a nice balance between real-time swordplay and classic JRPG turn-based action that feels more tactical and deliberate. Boss battles felt tense and challenging, and even regular enemies like Shinra soldiers, drakes, and guard dogs were designed with lots of love and care. So things are looking good for part 2, right? Well, not exactly, as the 2020 remake botched some key elements that made the original PS1 game so iconic. First, it messed up the world building by introducing boring NPCs and side quests that fulfill no purpose other than being filler to pad out the game length. Then it added a bunch of plot holes that didn't exist in the original plot by rewriting parts of the game. And finally, characters like Jesse and Aerith were kind of ruined by their modern reimagining. However, I know a lot of people are excited for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I'm willing to give Square Enix another chance. According to director Naoki Hamaguchi, Rebirth's plot and world will offer us a lot more freedom with multiple story routes compared to the very linear flow of FF7 Remake. Of course, this is Square Enix we're talking about, and they aren't exactly known for making massive changes to established formulas. Nevertheless, Rebirth is probably going to sell like hotcakes as soon as it launches, just because it's part of the FF7 Remake series. I just hope they don't screw up the plot as badly as they did in 2020. Number 4 on the list is Dragon's Dogma 2 from Capcom, set to release on March 22nd for PC and console. The first Dragon's Dogma, released in 2012, was a third-person hack-and-slash action RPG in which you hunted monsters and went on adventures with your party. It was designed to be fun, even for those who weren't particularly skilled at action games, and it featured a wide range of classes and professions, with some truly unique takes like the Strider and Magic Archer. Fighting alongside pawns and climbing gigantic monsters are set to make a return in the sequel. Thanks to the grab system, any boss fight against giant creatures is immediately made 10 times more interesting. Instead of mindlessly hacking away at the feet of a dragon while spamming potions, you can now climb on individual body parts of the beast and strike its weak spots for a much more engaging battle. I fell in love with the first Dragon's Dogma while playing it over the holidays. The combat system was unlike any other RPG I had ever experienced, and it transformed what used to be a routine task, killing lots of enemies for loot, into a genuinely exciting and memorable event. To this day, Dragon's Dogma has some of the best combat of any RPG I've played. With its massive open world, emergent gameplay, unique combat, and diverse cast of supporting characters, Dragon's Dogma 2 has the potential to be this year's standout RPG. Recently, Capcom's been on a roll with one hit after another, so they might just pull this one off and give us 2024's Game of the Year. Number 5, Avowed. This game is one that I've been following since its first reveal during the 2020 Xbox Games Showcase. Set to be released in fall 2024, this is Obsidian's first big-budget AAA game since Microsoft took over in 2018. Well, technically there was also The Outer Worlds, but its development had begun well before Microsoft bought Obsidian. During the early phases of development, Avowed's gameplay and world design were inspired heavily by Skyrim, but as development progressed, Obsidian's vision for Avowed shifted to focus on the style they had pioneered with games like Fallout New Vegas and Pillars of Eternity. Meaningful player choices and diverse story paths have always been Obsidian's bread and butter, so it's nice to see them sticking to their guns instead of making a simple Skyrim clone. The combat is in first person, and the entire game is set in the living lands from Pillars of Eternity. You've got spells, guns, swords, bows, and shields that can effortlessly be swapped around in the middle of combat. As for playstyles, you can be a spellcaster, gunslinger, sharpshooter, healer, controller, and pretty much everything in between. Recently, Obsidian released a gameplay trailer discussing the world of Avowed and how much freedom of choice you'll have as the player. However, I'm generally apprehensive when big AAA studios make claims like these because it's usually surface level and not very deep. It's been well over a decade since the studio made Fallout New Vegas, and The Outer Worlds didn't really live up to the hype, with lots of formulaic story choices and forgettable lore. But hopefully Obsidian opens up the narrative a bit more this time around and gives us an epic adventure with tons of replay value. Number 6 is Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn, a third-person action RPG in which you play as Nor Vanek, the God Killer. You also have a fluffy little fox companion called Enki, who's gifted with magical powers. The action is set in an apocalyptic fantasy world that is apparently run by sociopathic gods who constantly unleash waves of undead enemies on their subjects. This game mixes colonial-era weaponry such as swords and flintlock guns with magic to create a gameplay loop unlike anything you've ever seen. It combines the weightiness and variety of Dark Souls with the fast-paced movement and ferocity of Doom. The game encourages high-risk, high-reward maneuvers and forces you to constantly push your limits. A nice example of this is the scarcity of ammo. This can be remedied by getting up close and personal, executing enemies with your axe, so you can get more ammo for your flintlock. and killing enemies with the Flintlock rewards you with armor, so you can keep the action going at a breakneck pace, unleashing combo after combo to slay even the mightiest of gods. I've got my eye on this game, which is slated for a tentative fall release. Welcoming a familiar friend at number 7, we've got Dragon Age Dreadwolf, which might come out sometime later this year. With more hopes riding on it than the cure for cancer, Dreadwolf has the potential to seal BioWare's fate for the next decade. It could be a messiah for the ailing video game studio if they get it right, or another mark on their name like Anthem or Andromeda. Unfortunately, we just don't know a whole lot about Dragon Age Dreadwolf other than the fact that BioWare will do a full reveal this summer. What we do know is that this game's development has been anything but smooth. Started as Project Joplin in 2015 with Mike Laidlaw as creative lead, the game was originally supposed to be smaller in scope than its predecessors but more narrative heavy with major story choices. All these plans fell apart, though, as staff had to be shuffled between the ill-fated Mass Effect Andromeda and the now-forgotten abomination called Anthem. Things went from bad to absolutely hopeless in 2017 when parent company EA realized there was no room in the plot for microtransactions and canceled Project Joplin altogether. Frustrated by the direction this game was taking, Mike Laidlaw, previously the lead designer of Dragon Age Origins, left the studio in 2018. The man who replaced him as creative lead, Matthew Goldman, also left in 2021. Based on the initial reveal at the Game Awards and the plot cliffhangers from Inquisition's Trespasser DLC, Solus, aka the Dreadwolf, will play a pivotal role in the story of this game. If BioWare can return to the size and scope of Origins, while maintaining the same level of storytelling, gameplay, and diversity in playstyles, Dreadwolf is all but guaranteed to steal the show in 2024. But given BioWare's recent track record, that's a big if. To switch things up, number 8 is a game from China that's powered by Unreal Engine 5 and heavily based on Chinese mythology. It's called Black Myth Wukong and is set to be released this August on both PC and console. You control Sun Wukong, the supernatural monkey king who's one of the primary characters in the 16th century Chinese novel Journey to the West. As Sun Wukong, you have at your command a massive variety of skills and spells, including transformation techniques that can turn you into a tiny insect or giant monster. The gameplay possibilities are limitless, with a character like the Monkey King, which is what makes Black Myth Wukong so exciting. Maybe we'll even get a flying cloud and be able to extend our magical staff like Goku from Dragon Ball. Since this game is a Souls-like, it contains many giant Lovecraftian monsters with all sorts of weird appendages and dangly bits. It also features truly exquisite art design based on 3D scans of ancient Chinese architecture. The open world map is full of different biomes ranging from roaring oceans and green plains to snow-covered mountains and dense forests. If this game plays half as good as it looks, it will easily become one of this year's best sellers. The boss designs and combat system have already captured my attention, so I'm looking forward to getting the full experience this August. Number 9, Path of Exile 2. This sequel to the 2013 hit dark fantasy ARPG will launch its closed beta on June 7th. Just like its predecessor, this will be a free-to-play, online-only game featuring a massive world and an immensely complex skill system with more options than a McDonald's menu. The original Path of Exile was often described as a spiritual successor to Diablo, owing to its dark aesthetics and spell system. However, it stood out from other ARPGs due to the complete lack of any currency, using a bartering system instead. This will probably be continued in PoE 2, since purchases are going to be shared between the two games. PoE 2 will also expand upon the passive skill tree from its predecessor, which now features dual specialization, so you can allocate points to two different sets of skills that switch in and out depending on your equipped weapons. Path of Exile 2 has also added new character classes, bringing the total up to 12 from the first game's 7. It has also added a new endgame and all new items for existing fans of the game. Since Diablo 4 was a major disappointment for many, a lot of players might find what they're looking for in Path of Exile 2. And this game might lead to ARPGs going mainstream once again. Last but not least, at number 10, we've got Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. This is the sequel to the cult classic, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which released nearly 2 decades ago in 2004. overshadowed by the success of Half-Life 2, which was released around the same time, and burdened by glitches as a consequence of rushed development, this game never got the attention it deserved. But during the subsequent decade, it quietly gathered a cult following and became massively popular among niche RPG fan communities. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is an attempt to capture lightning in a bottle once again, but its troubled development is an indication that fans should be cautious before getting hyped for the sequel to one of their favorite RPGs. After all, this game was conceived, prototyped, and abandoned all in the span of 4 years. Originally assigned to Hardsuit Labs, the game suffered from several delays until both the narrative lead and senior writer left. These two had worked on the original VTM Bloodlines game, and their departure seriously hurt the development of the sequel. In 2021, the publisher, Paradox Entertainment, cut ties with Hardsuit Labs altogether and handed the game over to the Chinese Room instead. This will be their first big-name AAA project, and many VTM fans are hyped after the recent gameplay trailers. According to Steam, this game is slated for a fall 2024 release. Only time will tell if Paradox releases something that's truly innovative, or another failure that buries the VTM franchise for the next decade. I advise cautious optimism for now. Anyways, that's all I got for today's top 10 list. Which RPGs are you looking forward to in 2024, and did I miss any of them on my list? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe to Big Dan Gaming for more RPG videos and reviews. Big shout out to all the channel members for supporting my content. Until next time, this has been Big Dan. I should go.